Let's move on to New York. This was a big week for TNA, one of the most important weeks in the history of the company, without question. And I did a whole column, a long column for PW Mania earlier in the week, laying it on the line here, laying the whole thing out. This is what TNA has to do. They have to go to New York. They have to hit a home run. They have to change things around. They have to be different. They have to just go out there, give the people what they want, which is good wrestling, good action, good stories, have things that make sense, less talking, less Dixie, all of those things. And they have to do that, because if not, they may not have another chance. Here's a company that has gotten chance after chance after chance, and now they've been gifted another chance to come to New York in front of those people and knock it out of the park. And they have to take advantage of that, because it could be their last chance. They still have no TV deal for the fall. They're doing another set of tapings in August. So basically, once these Pennsylvania shows are done airing, and I think July 10th may be the final one, it's all New York for the rest of the summer, because they taped 2 shows each of the 3 nights. They're coming back to New York for another 2 shows for 3 straight nights. So the entire summer is going to be from the Manhattan Center Grand Ballroom in New York. And this is the last impression that people are going to have of TNA before the fall season. And by then, I would certainly hope they have a new TV deal with Spike already secured. I think they will, but they still don't have one. So this was a big deal for this company. And looking back on it, I didn't go to the first 2 nights of tapings. Again, I went to the final night of tapings. I think they did just that. I think they did exactly what they needed to do. They went out there, they had a bunch of kick-ass shows, and they did everything that they had to do to make a good impression on the fans in New York. And my only hope is that these shows translate well to television. You never really know how it's going to translate, how they're going to edit it. Of course, they're going to shove in all their pre-tapes, and the pre-tapes could ruin the show. I don't think they will, but you never know what's going to happen when it comes to that kind of stuff. Because we didn't see any of the pre-tapes. There was none of that. And it actually kind of felt to me like they may have even been taping some things out of order. I'm not entirely sure in what order everything's going to air. They would open with a match, and they would take a break, and Jeremy Borash would talk to us and get the crowd all hyped up, and then they would immediately go to the next match, and one after the other like that. So what they add in after the fact, I have no idea. But let's just go and start from the beginning of the week, because TNA made another big announcement on Wednesday at a press conference. They announced that Bound for Glory this year is going to be taking place October 12th from Korakuen Hall in Tokyo, Japan, a building that fits about 2,000 people. And it's going to be a joint show with Great Muda's Wrestle One promotion. Great Muda was there. He was with Dixie Carter at the press conference. I'm not sure about a company that is short on money, traveling halfway around the world to run a pay-per-view for 2,000 people. And depending on the setup of the building, you got to figure it's going to be probably set up for less than that. But that is one thing that I do like about TNA and Ring of Honor. They're similar in that way, because they're number 2 and number 3, whatever order you want to put them in. Okay, they're the number 2 and number 3 wrestling promotions in this country. They're more open to partnering with other promotions, whether it's a joint show or a talent exchange or whatever. So we end up with those ROH New Japan shows, which were awesome. And TNA has worked with They've worked with AAA and with Wrestle One. Even Jeff Jarrett, Jeff Jarrett's Global Force Wrestling promotion is, we haven't heard much of late about them, but they're going forward. They're preparing for their big debut later this year, early next year. And Jarrett just announced that GFW has also announced a partnership with New Japan Pro Wrestling. I guess Japan is in vogue these days. WWE does not have to work with anybody else because they're so damn big. But I think it would freshen up their shows if they did, every now and then. Keep an open mind. Have an open relationship with different companies all over the world. You don't think that every company in the world would be clamoring to work with WWE and would be probably willing to acquiesce to at least some of their demands, whatever form that relationship may take? Of course they would. It's good exposure for them. And let's be honest, so many of these companies are so damn small. WWE can work with them, and it's not like they're going to give them so much business it's going to take away from WWE, and they're going to create a monster that's going to become big and compete with them. It's not going to happen. They're so far ahead of everybody else in terms of just the sheer size of the company. They could work with the little guy every now and then if they wanted to. I get why they don't do it. They have to own everything. Guys come in who don't belong to them and then leave 3 months later. What good does it do them if they get over here and then they lose them? So I get that. But that's what I like about the smaller promotions. There's more variety there, a variety of styles. That's something WWE has no tolerance for. It's their way or no way. So it's a big deal. They're going to Japan, and again, I don't know that it really serves a purpose other than it makes TNA feel a little more major league, and that's important because TNA does not feel major league right now, and perception is reality. So anything they could do like that, I'm cool with, and I think it's a cool thing. I just question whether or not it makes any sense to be doing that at a time when they're cutting costs and they're cutting people left and right because they just don't have the money to do it, unless Wrestle One is footing the bill for the production aspect, which they might be. It's a joint show, so it's possible Wrestle One maybe is handling the production aspect of things, and TNA just has to fly all of its talent out there. I don't know. But yeah, TNA's beating WWE to the punch here. You have people still complaining that they won't bring WrestleMania to the UK, and TNA is bringing its WrestleMania over to Japan. So I don't think that's going to make WWE any more or less likely to come to the UK for a WrestleMania. With the network, I think it would be foolish not to have like a SummerSlam maybe, or a Royal Rumble from the UK at some point. With the network, you may as well just try it. Can't hurt. Fast forward to Thursday night, Dixie Carter went through a table at the TNA tapings. I said months ago when they started this angle, New York City was the place to do it. If they were building to it and the woman was going to take a bump, if she had to do it, New York was the place to do it, and then you blow it off. And you get her the hell off TV. And she took the bump. There was video that popped up online of it. Took it like a champ, and she may have been legitimately injured on that table bump. You watch the video, and Bully did everything he could. I mean, he totally protected her. It was more Bully's ass that went through the table than Dixie herself, but she's a 50-year-old woman who has no business taking bumps. So, what do you expect? Even Mae Young, when Mae Young took those bumps from Bully Ray, from Bubba Ray back in the day, and at that point, Mae was in her 70s or 80s. At the same time, though, Mae was a trained wrestler for so many years. She knew what she was doing. She knew how to fall, how to position her body, and again, she was protected as well. Dixie doesn't have any sort of formal training. She's not a wrestler. She's never been a wrestler. She never will be a wrestler. And she's a 50-year-old woman. So it's not all that surprising that she may have been hurt. I don't know what the injury is. It may have been an old back injury that was aggravated. I read somewhere that it may have been a concussion. I don't know if that's what it was. But apparently she wasn't even backstage at the final tapings on Friday. She definitely did not appear on camera, for which I was thankful. TNA did the right thing for a change. They really did. They gave the people what they wanted in the absolute right place to do it. Bully's hometown, a lot of rabid New York City fans just dying to see him put this woman through a table. And he did it, and it sounds like it was done as a way to keep her off television indefinitely. It could be, at least for now, a write-off for the Dixie Carter character. And it sounds like that is the plan. And to that I say, it's about damn time. It just wrote itself. Woman goes through a table, big bump, right? She shouldn't be popping back up on TV 2 weeks later. So now we get Dixie-free television going forward once these tapings finally air. We still have many more weeks of Dixie on television. But at least we know now, once this angle airs, we don't have to put up with her on television. Her character was so played out. And there were aspects of it that she played well. She would go some places and have great heat, but the character was so unbearable. And it was taking up so much time on television, and she really just had no business being there. And took up so many segments of just complete nonsense and authority figure bullshit that it's about damn time. Which takes us to the tapings on Friday night. These were the tapings that I went to. Brian Blade joined me, and I had a freaking blast. I don't think I've ever not had fun at a TNA live event, but these were my first Impact tapings. And coming off the worst collection of tapings in that company's history, I was a little worried, but they knew what they had to do. They had something to prove. They knew they had to hit a home run, and they hit a grand slam. One of the most fun experiences that I've had at a wrestling show. Now, I'm sure part of that had to do with the front row seats. I don't normally sit front row at these shows, but we were able to get front row tickets, and that always helps. But what made it great was, A, no Dixie and no Willow. Willow and Dixie both made appearances, or at least Dixie did. I don't know if Willow did. He might have. But there was no Dixie and no Willow on these final tapings. So that was important. But B, there was a little bit of everything on the shows. You know, you like good wrestling? You got that. You like fast action with the X Division? You got that. You like the hardcore garbage stuff with weapons and blood and thumbtacks and barbed wire? You got that in the opening match of the taping between Abyss and Bram. You like nostalgia? You got that with the Hardys and the Dudleys. They brought back a whole bunch of people. It felt like a big-time match, the Hardys and Dudleys did, in that it was a big-time match. You know, it may have been the last match between those two teams we ever get to see. And we got to see it. It felt special. One thing that was weird was not being privy to all the results of the earlier tapings. So guys would come out, and they were referencing stuff that happened the night before, or 2 nights before, or from the Bethlehem tapings that hasn't aired yet. You know, I mean, they're still airing those Impacts from Pennsylvania until July 10th. So, for instance, Gail Kim walked out with the Knockouts title on her shoulder, and it's like, when the hell did she win the belt back? You know, or even better than that, Sam Shaw and Mr. Anderson were tag team partners in one of the matches on the show. Now, granted, they weren't willing partners. They're not best friends. But still, it's like, what the fuck is going on here? Didn't take away from my enjoyment of the show. It's hard to get into the stories when you missed a few chapters. So that was one of the things that I noticed. Crowd on Friday night was sold out. From what I read, 1,200 was the number. Whatever the number was, whether it was 1,200, 900, it was packed. So they definitely had plenty of people there. It's a small venue. I mean, the ballroom upstairs, which I used to go to for Ring of Honor shows, it's the same ballroom that Raw was taped in when Raw first came on the air in '93. The Hammerstein Ballroom is downstairs on the first floor. That building can fit, I think, up to maybe 2,500 with the setup for wrestling. So, still a very intimate venue, but a lot bigger. So, at least they were able to fill the smaller one, because there were a lot of reports that they weren't even able to come close to selling out the tapings, and it wasn't until the week of the events that they finally did sell out or night number 2, and they sold out. I think the third night was the first one to sell out. The second one sold out right before the show. So at least they were able to do that. We got a couple of explosion matches. Madison Rayne beat Brittany with a forward roll. The Wolves beat the Bromans. First taping opened with a Monsters Ball match. So we just saw a Monsters Ball match on Impact air this week, and all of a sudden we're getting another one. Bram and Abyss. These poor fuckers. These guys beat the shit out of each other. They just ripped each other open with weapons. Abyss took... Maybe it was Bram who actually brought a barbed wire board out from under the ring. He set it up in the corner. Janice, the nail-filled board, was out there, and you know there was chairs, there was garbage cans, there were tables, there was a wrench or whatever that instrument is that they used to put the ring ropes up. So they had a brawl. They had one of those garbage brawls, and what I couldn't believe was at one point, Abyss, I think he only brushed up against the barbed wire board, and his arm was all cut up. All of a sudden, his arm was bleeding, and I'm thinking to myself, this motherfucker using real barbed wire on this show. Why? Why would you do that? You know what I mean? I mean, I know... You know, some of the fans are bloodthirsty, and that's just how they are. But I was watching this, and I'm thinking to myself, this fucking guy is going to tear his shit up for real, with real barbed wire, for what? It's just a throwaway match on Impact. You know, you could have the same effect if you have the fake barbed wire out there, and, you know, if Abyss is, let's say, slammed on it, he wears a shirt, so if he doesn't bleed, it's not as big of a deal. Let's say he puts Bram through it. Bram's out there without a shirt on. Yeah, it might look weird if he hits the barbed wire and doesn't get all cut up, but I don't know. I just thought that was stupid. He just kind of brushed up against it, and his whole arm was all cut up, and I was like, oh, God. But then the thumbtacks came out, and Bram took a bump on the thumbtacks, and I saw that, I guess Magnus did on Impact. He took a chokeslam bump onto the thumbtacks, and I thought his facials when he got slammed were great. Probably didn't have to exaggerate much, because I imagine it doesn't feel too good to be body slammed on thumbtacks. Bram took the same bump here, and immediately his back was bleeding, and just it was brutal, just absolutely brutal. And I think Bram won. Pretty sure that Bram won in the end. So yeah, just watching this was a spectacle, especially because it was the first match of the taping. So like the show starts, and all of a sudden there's guys bleeding, and there's weapons, and it's like, wow, how are you going to top this? MVP was out next on crutches with Lashley, Kenny King, and a bunch of random women. I'm sure it was no accident they sent 3 black dudes out there with a horde of white women. Way to play up that stereotype. Lashley, by the way, is absolutely enormous in person. Just a huge man. A monster of a man. MVP said there was no competition left for Lashley. That brought out Bobby Roode, who is, when you see him in person, he's got that mohawk-type haircut. I don't know that it works so well. I'm sure there's a name for it. I would never in a million years ask for a haircut like that, so I have no interest in looking it up. But whatever it's called, it doesn't really suit him well. They all ended up attacking Bobby Roode, which led to Eric Young and Austin Aries making the save. That set up a 6-man tag for later in the show. Bromans and DJ Zima beat Mr. Anderson, Gunner, and Sam Shaw. Those must be some amazing pre-tapes that haven't aired yet to explain this one. The way this all played out, with Anderson wanting nothing to do with Shaw and Gunner trying to make peace between them, and then Sam Shaw actually got the hot tag at one point. He started to run wild on the heels, and Anderson was the one who got rolled up for the finish. So when you look at this whole thing, I could see this becoming a double turn scenario where people start to slowly turn on Anderson while Shaw gets over as a babyface. I have no idea if that's where they're going, but that was what I got coming out of these tapings. That would not be the last time we would see these men either. Actually, the person we saw the most of anybody on this night was Zima Ion. He was out there for an explosion match in the corner of the Bromans. He was out there in this match wrestling, and then he was out again later on for an X Division scramble. Dude was everywhere. Beautiful people came out. Angelina was missing her title, so I figured she must have lost it somewhere along the way. And sure enough, Gail Kim came out with the belt to confront them. And Taryn Terrell was out there. Gail said that she would defend her title against all of them, Angelina, Velvet, and Taryn. I'm not sure when, because it did not happen on this night. Broke down into a brawl. Babyfaces ran off the heels. So, yeah, there you go. Bully Ray and Velvet Sky are an item now, apparently. That's what he said on the Opie and Anthony show. Good for him. I look at that and I just think to myself, what an odd pairing. Bully Ray and Velvet Sky. Wow. Then we got a really good match. Sonata, Samoa Joe, and Low Ki for the X Division title. Low Ki is back in TNA, and he is using that name. He is not using the Senshi name that he used last time. Kind of like Austin Aries. You know, when Austin Aries first came to TNA, they called him Austin Starr. Then he left, came back, and was using the name that he always used, Austin Aries. Same thing with Low Ki. So he looked good. Joe tapped out Sonata with the choke. He won the X Division title. So Samoa Joe is your new X Division champion. Place popped huge for that. Bully Ray was out next. Great reaction from the crowd. He brought out Devon. Matt and Jeff Hardy ended up coming out, so we had the Hardys and the Dudleys in the ring, and of course people wanted... They kept chanting TLC, and it was funny because I'm watching them in the ring. I'm watching Devon in particular, and Devon's got this reaction like, no, because they were not having a TLC match. But, you know, they were talking about like the past wars that they've had, and they specifically brought up the table matches and the TLC matches. So it was only natural that the crowd would chant for that. But they set up a main event, Hardys against Dudleys. Felt like a big-time match. It's a match we have not seen in a number of years. And, you know, again, two teams that helped revolutionize tag team wrestling at a time when tag team wrestling was kind of stagnant. And at the very end of 99 into 2000, Edge and Christian, the Hardys and the Dudleys, they did it. You know, they brought tag team wrestling back from the abyss. They made it fun to watch again. And for a while there in 2000, you had a tag team division that was a hell of a lot of fun. You had those guys, and the Radicals came in. You had, the APA. You had Too Cool. I'm sure there's a few others I'm forgetting. Even the Outlaws. The New Age Outlaws were still doing some teaming around that time. Rock and Sock Connection. So, anyway, so that was a big-time main event. People were very into it that they set up there. Lashley, Kenny King, and MVP beat Bobby Roode, Austin Aries, and Eric Young after Lashley speared Aries inside out to get the pin. MVP came to the ring on one crutch. He was all suited up in his wrestling gear, ready to go. So I imagine his knee injury is healing well. Otherwise, if not, it was stupid for him to be out there wrestling. He didn't do much, but why take the risk? One other just quick note here that I noticed, because we're in the front row, and the baby faces are on, because again, they're using the six-sided ring. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention that. The six-sided ring is back, and it didn't seem like guys were having too much trouble adjusting to it or wrestling in it. I mean, then again, I was there on the last night, so they had already been wrestling in the ring for multiple tapings the previous 2 days. I'm sure they got used to it. And there are people in the company who were there for the first several years, and so they know how to work in that kind of ring. It did sound a lot louder than I remember it sounding when guys would get slammed and take bumps, to where it actually made me hurt, so hopefully it didn't hurt them too much. But the baby faces were on the apron on our side, right in front of us. And Eric Young got knocked out of the ring at one point, so he's just kind of out there leaning against the apron. And I'm looking at this guy. The back knee on this guy was disgusting. It's just like, I couldn't look away. I'm looking at this guy, and I'm like, God, he's just got back knee all over himself. Anyway, EC3 was out, dressed up in a suit. His head was all bandaged because he got cut open hard way the night before. Had to go have a whole bunch of staples put in his head. So he was out there not looking very happy at all over what happened to his Aunt Dixie the night before. Rockstar Spud was out there with him. He also was not in a good mood. They came out to the ring with Rhino. So again, one of those things where I'm watching this going, what the hell is Rhino out there doing with Spud and EC3? Obviously something happened at the tapings the night before, or maybe the night before that. No idea if Rhino turned on Dreamer or Bully or what happened. The thing about Rhino was inexplicably out there wearing flip-flops. The man-beast in flip-flops. Maybe they can edit some boots onto his feet in post-production. He looked ridiculous. EC3 demanded that Bully Ray be terminated immediately from TNA for putting his Aunt Dixie through a table. Kurt Angle came out, and he is the new authority figure in TNA because we don't have enough of those. He called the cops to the ring to arrest them for refusing to vacate the premises. Spud was hilarious here. He was standing up to the cops. He called them a bunch of donut eaters, and they just all tackled him to the ground. EC3 tried to pay off the cops, tried to bribe them, threw a bunch of money in their face. They cuffed him anyway and hauled him off. And when he left the ring, Kurt Angle picked up one of those $20 bills off the mat and handed it to a little kid in the front row. Then we got Mr. Anderson against Gunner. And this is where the crowd started to get very restless. It was obvious that this was for the second taping now. They never said that. The crowd started amusing themselves with chants of "Let's go Cena, Cena sucks." They started singing the Adam Rose theme song. Then we got "Ole Ole" chants for Sami Zayn. They started a "We Are Awesome" chant, which just bugged the hell out of me. You know, it was amusing the first time when we did it in Jersey the night after WrestleMania last year. Now it's just stupid. Sam Shaw came out. He caused the DQ. Crowd chanted "Thank you, Dexter" at him. Abyss was out for a promo, holding his ribs after being clubbed in the midsection with Janice earlier in the night. He called out Bram and Magnus, who now have Janice in their possession. Abyss challenged Bram to a Stairway to Janice match, where the board will be suspended 15 feet above the ring. Whoever gets it first can claim it as their own. Match is going to have tables, chairs, tacks, fire, glass, barbed wire. Bram accepted. Not sure why, but he accepted. And Abyss said that he would show them what a bitch Janice can be. Six-man tag team, six-man X Division elimination scramble match. Low Key, Tigre Uno, Manic, DJ Zima, Crazy Steve from the Menagerie, and Homicide, who was back in TNA. A lot of the eliminations came in pretty rapid-fire succession, one after the other, but when it came down to Low Key and Homicide, it got real good. Crowd was into it. I felt like I was back at a Ring of Honor show 7 years ago in that building. Homicide did a dive outside onto Low Key at one point. Low Key was outside, right by the metal barrier. And Homicide, I should say, did a dive. He almost took out the entire front row. I mean, he knocked the barricade so far back, I was amazed that he didn't injure anybody in the front row, and that he didn't kill himself. I'm stunned he didn't break his own neck the way he fell. But he popped right back up, and he looked okay. So, anyway, the match went on, and Low-Key got the win. Main event was Team 3D against the Hardy Boys. 3D was out there wearing their old-school Dudley Boys gear, including Bully was rocking the classic camo outfit. Crowd chanted, "This is awesome," before they even touched. Lots of action here. Never a dull moment. You would think, okay, they'll go out there, they'll have a good match, maybe a little slow at the beginning. Nope, they went out there. It was pretty much action from start to finish. Some crazy moves, although nothing as crazy as Jeff Hardy doing a frickin' swanton onto the ring steps the first night. Guy's out of his mind. They all hit their signature spots. Dudley's did the wazap headbutt when they won with a 3D on Matt. After the match, they all shook hands, embraced in the middle of the ring. So basically, think about the click curtain call from '96. That's kind of what this looked like here. Bully got on the mic, said they were the last of a dying breed. Oh, apparently he and Bull Dempsey are both the last of a dying breed. He said there's one team in the back that can carry the torch for tag team wrestling, and called out the Wolves. Matt Hardy started to get emotional while cutting a promo on how he and Jeff and Bully and Devon and another team, you all know who they are, they all succeeded when they weren't supposed to, and they reinvigorated tag team wrestling, and he put over the Wolves real strong. It was actually a really good promo Matt Hardy cut here. And all of them, they all put the Wolves over as like the next big thing. It really felt like the passing of a torch in a lot of ways. We hear that expression thrown around a lot. That's really what this felt like. Bully got back on the mic. People were chanting ECW, and he actually basically said, listen, I appreciate when you guys do that, but what I want to hear you chant is 3 other initials. And they all started chanting TNA. And he got real serious for a second. He said, everybody in this company, the past is the past. They're here to bust their ass. They do it for the people. He said the last 3 nights were some of the best wrestling today that you're going to find. If you disagree, get the F out. And he called all the wrestlers that were still here in the back, told them all to come on down. And so all the baby faces came out. Simon Diamond, right? Pat Kenny came out. Al Snow, they were the agents there. They came out on stage. And I think it was Devon who got on the mic, and he said, hey, everybody, it's Al Snow's birthday, so let's all sing happy birthday to him. And everybody sang happy birthday. Al Snow was, he was up on stage, and he's like pointing at Devon like, you motherfucker, I'm going to get you back. Because as it turns out, it wasn't even Al Snow's birthday. It's just a rib that Devon apparently was playing on him all day long. I think Al's birthday is next month. So it wasn't even his birthday, but everybody chanted, happy birthday, Al Snow. And then the wrestlers all went around ringside shaking hands and taking pictures and signing autographs and chit-chatting with the fans at ringside, and it was actually a really cool moment. It's the sort of thing that you, again, will find at a TNA show or even a Ring of Honor show, and WWE is just so damn big that you can't get that same kind of experience. So when you're there, when you're actually there, it's fun to be part of something like that. And all the knockouts came around. You could check the Instagram page. I put a video up when the knockouts were coming around right by us, and Madison Rayne blew a kiss into the camera, and Taryn Terrell came walking by, and Rebel was there. I got a great shot of, I think it was Rebel, Madison, and Taryn up on the apron. They happened to be waving at the exact same moment. I think they were waving to the fans up in the balcony right above us, and I got a shot. It's my favorite photo from the night. It's just a perfect shot. So, just a lot of fun. I mean, a lot of fun. Devon was coming around, and Brian Blade started talking to him, and if you can call it a scoop, I don't know if it's really much of a scoop or not, but, Brian kept telling him, listen, I hope you're back, want to see more of you, and hope you're sticking around, and Devon was, I appreciate that, and actually that might just happen. So it sounds like Devon is at least open to the idea of sticking around in TNA, and he may well be back. So I'm sure we haven't seen the last of him. If nothing else, obviously he and Bully are going into the Hall of Fame at Bound for Glory in October. We'll see them there. So it sounds like Devon may not be done just yet. And that was it. That was the night. And all I could say is this. When you give people a great show, okay, when you give the people what they want to see, they reward you for it. I left feeling like I got my money's worth. When I bought my ticket to this show, I think I bought my ticket, it might have been the same week, at the beginning of May, that they taped those shows from Orlando. They taped like 6 or 7 weeks worth of television, and it was horrendous. Every show was worse than the one before it. And I was this close from just calling it quits because it was just so bad. they have so many talented guys, and it was just so bad. How can you just have such bad television? But again, I had already bought my ticket, and I wanted to go to the show, and Brian was coming with me, and I didn't know what to expect, but I was happy when it was over because it was quite the turnaround from what we have seen on television over the last month and a half. It was almost like a different company in a lot of ways. And like I said before, when you give the people what they want, they reward you for it. They're coming back for another set of tapings at the Manhattan Center in August, and I've already bought my ticket for the next show. I'm going to go back. They're coming back for 3 more shows, the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th, and I'll be hitting up the first taping on the 5th, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it a lot. I'm pretty sure these shows that we were at are not airing. I want to say August 14th and the 21st is when they're going to air. I could be off by a week on that. But yeah, they're not going to air until the middle of August, so you're not going to be seeing this stuff for a while. I'll probably be all over the damn show because we were right there. I mean, we're right in the front row, right by the ring steps where everybody was entering on the side there. So you'll be seeing my mug on TV, unless they decide to put a blue dot over my face, which is always possible. But thumbs up to TNA. Credit where credit is due. They came to New York. They conquered. They left. They had a great showing, a lot of momentum, a lot of positive feelings coming out of these tapings. They're coming back again in August, and hopefully they can fill the building up then. And whatever formula they use this time, maybe a little less on relying on bringing back old faces and just focus on what brought you to the dance, man. Put those X guys out there. Put out stories that are easy to follow with guys that people want to cheer for. Push guys like Joe. Push guys like Aries. Push guys like Bobby Roode. Even Eric Young, he was over with the crowd big time. And push, guys like Low Key and Homicide. If those guys are back, then those are the guys you want to have on the card in New York. And get other guys out there like Manic and Sonata and Tigre Uno, and maybe bring in some other new, fresh faces and just let them go out there and tear it up. That's the only way you're going to be able to win any sort of goodwill back from the people, is by keeping all that garbage in the past and focusing on what brought you to the dance, which is a lot of good action that you will not see in WWE. Don't try to be something that you can never be. You can never be WWE. Don't be that. Be TNA. And that's what they did. These 3 nights, that's exactly what they did. And look what happened. It worked out for them.